The world is currently facing a pandemic which is affecting pretty much every one of us. And in this video and in next week's video, I want to talk to people around the world to get their experiences, what the situation in their country is looking like, what restrictions is in place, and also what people are doing throughout the day. So in this video, we're going to listen to 7 different people from 7 different places around the world.
So I'm Paris Norris and I am in Dubai quarantining in my living room here.
My name is Lianne and I'm in the Netherlands.
Hello, I'm Mariana. I'm Polish, living in Ecuador.
My name is Siobhan and I'm calling in from Darwin, Northern Territory, Australia.
I'm Lena from Russia.
Giovanna. I'm still living in between 2 countries, Italy and Spain.
How are you?
It's been an interesting time, and I think a wake-up call for how we treat each other and the world.
I remember having a week of being very depressed because all of my business had been cancelled. I couldn't really see where this is going, and then I thought, you've got to be positive.
We wear masks, we wear the gloves, and try to take care.
For me, whenever I'm challenged to anything, I get excited about it and I want to succeed. So I thought, this is a challenge. It's not just a challenge to survive and see if I can keep the company together and keep paying people and keep earning money. It's also a challenge to see that when we come out the other side, that we've got both feet on the ground and that we're able to do things properly.
This is the safest place in Australia to be at the moment, actually. We've only had, our cases reached a peak of 29, I believe, and we haven't had a new case in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Most of those 29 have recovered. We've had no deaths, and the borders are closed, so no one can come into the state unless they have a very good reason, and if they do have a very good reason, they need to self-isolate for 2 weeks.
Okay.
They have the military at the borders. They're not joking around.
We cannot go anywhere because since we came back from Spain, now we need to stay home for 15 days, 2 weeks, just to be sure that we didn't get the virus and we won't spread it more.
A lot of people talk about how it's like Groundhog Day. So every morning, you have the same routine. I think that is true because, you wake up in your apartment. I'm living in a tiny New York apartment in Manhattan. I have 2 rooms. One is my work desk during the day. The other one is my work desk at night or when I need to change the scenery.
I think it's very typical in these crises that you have these different stages, right? There's this immediate response where everyone gets scared and you have to, make sure that, there's enough hospital beds. And then there's this phase where everyone is like, oh, we have to stay positive and let's, collect money for restaurants that have to be closed. And there's this huge, community spirit. Mm-hmm. And now we're definitely reaching the phase where everyone is like, how long is this going to take? Is this really necessary? Why isn't the government doing anything about this? And you can sort of see, morale going down, I would say.
Well, living in New York, I feel like your experience here is really impacted heavily by your ability to go outside. Going to work, going to social events, meeting and talking with people. We have a lot of density here. We have so many people. It's a very social place to be. For a lot of us who live in the city, we don't have, backyards. We don't have spaces that we can, create new experiences. The spaces is the experience. So being in a large crowd is part of, being in New York.
What are the restrictions that you have in Russia?
Well, the thing is that we have the most restrictions, the more toughest restrictions. I think the toughest restrictions are in Moscow because the majority of people who are infected are there. If you need to use a car or if you need to use a public transport, you basically need to get a QR code, and then you have to show it to a police officer.
Rules are we can't leave the house without a permit, and we can only get a permit to go to the supermarket once every 3 days.
Okay.
In Ecuador, we have a quarantine. It's the quarantine of whole country. We can leave our house only to make shoppings.
Okay.
And all of the businesses are closed. Only food business works, police, obviously, hospitals. And we have also police hour from 2 p.m. No one cannot be on the streets. There are some exceptions for doctors and for people which need to do their job, but it's very strict.
You see, the difficult thing here in Dubai is summer is pretty much it's a very difficult time to work here. There's not a lot going on. It's too hot. There's nothing, no events happening. So this just happened at a bad time because it's happened before the summer in our peak season, and then we have Ramadan starting at the end of this week. You know, because usually Ramadan's great for evening events, and we have dinners and, you know, lots of social things in the evenings. Well, those are just going to probably not be allowed because of the current situation.
The restaurants and cafes and bars are closed. You can get takeout from all of them, the ones that have decided to remain open in that capacity, so they can still keep staff on. You can get takeaway from them. A lot of them have sort of moved to an online space too, so you can order from them. Some of them have moved to delivery as well, which has been quite nice. But you aren't allowed to go and get a remedial massage if you want one.
You can go out just for, very strict reasons, like kind of you need to buy food. Yeah, that's okay. You need to buy some medicines. That's still okay. But unless you don't have real reasons to go out, then you cannot.
They are considering easing some restrictions within the next month, considering we have basically no cases. But I can't imagine they'll open the nightclubs back up. They're probably just the restaurants with, 1.5 meters between tables.
We are not like on a national lockdown or something. Like, we can't go outside. You're just not supposed to get too close to each other. So you can go for a run or for a walk, and lots of people are doing that. But then at the same time, it's like you want to do all these things that you can't right now. So no.
We're staying shelter in place in New York, and we outside we're wearing face masks. We practice social distancing. For the most part, that's you don't go outside unless it's for exercise or essential services like going to the grocery store, getting food, medical emergencies.
You've been in this region, you know that social distancing was already culturally a thing with the Nordics.
Now, think of us that this social distancing is impossible. I mean, you hug your parents, you hug your friends. In Spain, even more. In Spain, you see a friend, you kiss her or him. In Italy, well, it depends if you are really a close friends, and men, women. It's a little bit different, but still, this social distancing doesn't exist.
Many people, I think, are already waiting when it will start opening a bit, because it's also not easy to be locked down with everything.
Was there a point in time where you realized that, this is going to be a problem?
So a couple of months, not even a couple of months ago, on March the 1st, I went on a cruise. I've never been on a cruise before. This wasn't actually my choice of holiday. It was my friend who was on long service leave, and she goes, let's go on a cruise. And so we planned this last year, and we went on the cruise, and all that anybody could talk about was coronavirus. And about 2 days in, they banned people from serving their own food at the buffet, and they wouldn't let you come into any of the eating areas without using the hand sanitizer. And before we got on the ship, they had pretty stringent documents to fill out to document where you'd been in the last 14 days. There are a couple of ports that if you had been to certain countries, they wouldn't let you off the ship. When we got back in, I was like, well, this is definitely getting pretty serious, looking at some news stories, feeling a bit dodgy, and I flew back from Sydney to Darwin, and I was meant to go on the 20th to Brisbane to look at some wedding venues. Cancelled that. And a good thing I did, because about 2 days later, they shut down the borders here in the Northern Territory, and I would have been allowed back, but I would have had to quarantine for 14 days.
I think for me it was somewhere closer to the end of March because, because I teach English, some of my students start to say like, well, we don't know when the next lesson is going to be and all that stuff. So I'd say somewhere around that. But when it comes to other people, I think everybody started to act seriously, or at least treat this issue more seriously at the beginning of April. Because before that, everybody's like, who cares about this thing?
So I started to realize that this was affecting us, whether we liked it or not, that we had lost business already. I then started to sort of say to my staff a little bit after that, I said, look, just prepare yourself, because I don't know what's going to happen and I can't promise anything. But obviously my staff are the priority. But I was like, just bear it in mind. So, if you can save a little bit extra this month by not going out and not doing something, I'd highly advise it.
If you read my posts on Facebook, I realized before the governments, both governments, I was like saying, let's stay home. This is serious. Let's stay home. I locked down my parents in mid-February, something like this. Because it's not that I'm a genius. It's just I have friends and students in China. And they were like telling me really bad things, especially a friend of mine, quite a close friend of mine. She was like saying, stay home, don't go out. This is serious, Giovanna, this is serious. So I have friends and students. They were like sending me messages, WhatsApp, like how things are going there. Like, but here it looks normal. And they're like, it's not. It will explode sooner or later. And they were right.
Halfway March, I think, March 12th or so.
March 12th.
There was this announcement that gatherings of over 100 people were not allowed anymore. And also that places, like public places, like theaters, for example, had to close down. And then for me, it was like, okay, we have a concert, like on Sunday, like we have to cancel all these things. And then a week later, they announced that it wasn't 100 people anymore, it was 30. And that all events until June 1st had to be canceled. So that for me just meant like, okay, like anything I was supposed to be doing in the next 3 months, we can like cross it out. It's not happening. For myself, for example, I noticed that I was checking Twitter all the time because every single little update felt like super relevant and important. And I feel that has certainly sort of ebbed away a little bit. So also now, if you talk to somebody, you sort of keep a distance. But if I'm passing somebody on the street, I'm not like moving around them in a 4-meter circle or something, everyone is like, it's becoming a little bit more normal, I feel, in that sense.
Doctors in Italy, we have lots of them talking, and some of them like Borioni, that in Italy is very famous because he used lots of social media, so he got famous. And he was saying, let's lock down now. And he was saying that in February, like, let's do this now. He was attacked and everything because it's like, that's too much. They couldn't really perceive the thing. It's not that I could, but I was trusting my friends, it's like they were living this. So like kind of, if they're living this, maybe it's so bad. But I took a flight, so I took a risk. I risked myself with all the precautions possible, like kind of, but I took a flight. So I perceived that was kind of serious, but I thought that for my generation, for us that are kind of young, it wasn't so bad. So I took a flight. Then I realized that probably was a mistake, kind of, well, I'm fine, nothing happened. But a few weeks later, I wouldn't have taken that flight. I would just say no.
Yeah, I mean, when you started seeing the numbers coming out of China in January and February, that was something that was news, and you knew what was going on. I think when Washington State was hit in the U.S. at a nursing home, that became like a big wake-up call.
So what do you do during the days? I mean, you're used to being out and about, but what do you do?
Okay, basically I'm a climber and mountaineer, so most of my days I was spending outside, climbing in the rocks, or being in the mountains, or climbing in the climbing gym. So all of the places now are closed and it's impossible to go. So the only option which I have is to train in the house. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using hangboarding for training the finger strength. And I have some small gym in the building, so I can do other physical exercises, but I cannot do climbing.
Well, I still have a couple of lessons. I have a couple of students, and I teach through Skype, even though it's not always convenient. But yeah, I do some work. I started learning Danish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I tried to maybe look through my photos and edit some photos because I had a few busy months, so I just I took pictures, but I never really edited any of them, and so I thought, well, like, why not? Why not use this time in a profitable way?
If I want to talk to someone who, normally I would have to jump through 5 hoops to talk to, I can just send an email and say, hey, let's chat. And, all of that other stuff that they're dealing with has also been taken away. So the burden of having to get in touch with someone in a lot of ways has been miraculously reduced.
But then when you kind of focus on the things you can do, you start finding that you're making massive success in things that you needed to do and you didn't have time for. And now I'm realizing that it was probably important that I did it. And so it was good to be forced to do it.
I've had to develop some new hobbies. My dogs are enjoying me home all the time. That's definitely a bonus for them. They're all the time. Mum is available to play all day. I am getting a taste of what it's like to have children.
I've never had such speed going with everything. We're launching on new channels and everything, so it's brilliant. So in that sense, it's giving me time to focus on that. And then now when I go back to the actual creating videos and getting sponsors on, we'll have a lot more to talk about, bigger viewership.
I've been trying to figure out if we have any long-term projects that we can at least map out and make plans for. And I go on walks a lot, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you can. Certain countries, you can't.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of cooking in the past couple of weeks. So pulled the slow cooker out and cooked a whole bunch of stuff to put in the freezer. We could probably survive for a month off of what I've cooked for no good reason.
I cook a lot, which is not good at all. Because, I cook a lot. Well, I always loved cooking, but now I can cook even more. And I talk a lot with friends. I took time to, talk to friends that I haven't talked to, years no, but weeks or months, from China to South America.
It's allowed us to talk to each other in ways that I used to do when I lived in Southwest Virginia. When I first met you in 2007, on the morning of the Virginia Tech shootings, different countries, showing up in a place of a crisis, and we were able to connect and, communicate through footage. And, I think this moment has allowed us and others this unique opportunity to connect in ways that, I think is more familiar and what it would be like if we were neighbors.
For me, whenever I'm challenged to anything, I get excited about it and I want to succeed. So I thought, this is a challenge. it's not just a challenge to survive and see if I can keep the company together and keep paying people and keep earning money. It's also a challenge to see that when we come out the other side, that we've got both feet on the ground and that we're able to, able to do things properly. Because, some companies will lose a lot of staff, not be in a position, and when there is business, they won't have the people there to do it.
I think what also makes a big difference for me that now you slowly start to hear some more positive news. Like I remember in the beginning, like also here, right, you had this exponential growth and nobody knew what was going on, and it was this like you didn't know where it was going, and now you can definitely see things are slowing down and like there's less people in the ICUs, so there's a little bit more room to breathe, and I think that also makes it easier, I would say.
What do you miss the most?
I'd say interactions with people and the ability to not worry too much, about going anywhere, because I don't know, I can be a bit anxious about everything and about laws, because in Russia you can be fined quite easily, I would say. I try to, check if I can go out of my house.
I miss being in the outdoors. Because me, like last time I saw you, we went out on the boat, right? I love going in the desert. I love going in the mountains. I love paramotoring. I love, flying or scuba diving. These are the things that give me the most enjoyment. And I can't do any of them right now. And then on top of that, it's a bit difficult to get exercise at the moment. I mean, we're not actually allowed out for exercise. So
Okay.
Yeah, we were for a while, and now we're on a hardcore lockdown.
I miss my friends. I miss the gym. I miss going out to a random cafe and just sitting there and working for a bit.
I really miss this face-to-face contact.
I would definitely say just hanging out with people.
Do you want to put the rumor to rest that 800 lions were put on the streets of Moscow to keep people indoors?
Well, yeah, like lions, no, no lions, but like it's a bit too cold for lions in here.
No, we can't put lions on the street because it's too cold. Oh.
And what I find very interesting is that a lot of people here talk about Sweden as an example of where they actually didn't close everything down and things appear to be fine. So why aren't we doing what Sweden is doing?
I think it has to do with what you said, how like what the first response from the different governments were, and also of course how bad it had gotten before any government did anything. I mean, I can totally understand that you would have a lockdown in Italy, the same way that I totally understand why the Swedish authorities, with obviously based on advice of the health department, just said, okay, we haven't reached a situation where like all hospital beds are taken yet, so let's just kind of keep it somewhat open so that people, so that we don't just postpone like the peak for 5 weeks ahead, but instead have this kind of gradual, as long as we have hospital beds for those who really need it. At the same time, recommendations in Sweden are when authorities recommend things, that's basically the law. It's not like legal law, but it's basically this is what you should do. And the great thing about Sweden is that we're really good at shaming each other for not falling in line.
Here, everybody's trying to escape to see their friends, but knows that they shouldn't because they will get in trouble. Where there, it's the opposite, is that you have more of a kind of societal, moral kind of compliance than we do.
Sweden in a nutshell.
Or maybe just a little, exactly. That's exactly Sweden. And that's why everybody thinks that Sweden, everyone was saying, well, Sweden haven't put the restrictions in, that it's going to backfire for them. But actually, what they don't understand is Sweden is doing the same as everybody else, except they're doing it voluntarily rather than being forced to by law.
I do understand there is a virus, but you can't stay home for forever. It's like that's not healthy. You miss fresh air, you miss sun, you miss, you can't. It's also stressful. So you really have to change this a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I presume.
I mean, people have been pointing, both to mental illness results of this, but also in the US, a lot of the discussion has been around like domestic violence, and because people are locked inside, the risk of domestic violence will increase. So you have all these parameters that you have to kind of balance, and
It's also a problem here in Italy and in Spain as well, because domestic violence here is really a huge thing. If you look at the statistic, this is horrible.
We've known each other for 12 years. It's hard. The non-physical part. I mean, obviously you and me, we're conditioned because we are at a great distance from each other. We met a few times, but I mean, this is one of the few times that we've actually done this. So it's nice to not just have the, I know what you're doing on Instagram and you know what I'm doing on Instagram, but we never really talk.
That's very true. I was thinking the same thing. It was like, we could have done this earlier,
Yeah.
Hey, I think we've all learned a lot about ourselves during this time period, and learned a lot about how everything works and what the flaws in our existing systems are. The number of people that are going without service, income right now, and who's actually essential. What the economy is actually managing quite fine without. Definitely a learning experience.
Are you bored?
Kind of, obviously. The positive thing is that I can be more structured, that I can plan it really well. But the other thing is that I don't have tools to do it perfectly, because for climbing I need to be climbing basically.
I think the most important part of right now is to take advantage of the fact that you don't have a lot of things to do. So you can focus on specific things and grow those out, and serendipitously be drawn to other things that you didn't think you would want to be doing. For some it's baking, for some it's painting, planting, doing things that, because your schedule is already filled, that are more simple and pleasurable in therapeutic ways.
I just want to go back to normal life. When you can just stick to your routine, and where you can go anywhere you like, when you can meet up with a friend and have a cup of coffee. That I really miss that. I really miss that a lot.
Yes, we are truly affected by this pandemic all across the world. And in next week's video, I'm going to talk to 7 more countries of how they're doing, what restrictions they have, and also what they're doing to, ride out the storm or just wait for whatever the new normal will be. Thank you for watching.